In 1999, a jury in Memphis, Tennessee reached a verdict. Not in a criminal case, in a civil lawsuit brought by the King family, the verdict found that a conspiracy had contributed to the death of Martin Luther King Jr. That verdict is in the legal record. It is real. And almost no one knows it happened. That is not where this story starts, but it is where it ends up. In the distance between the official account most people carry and what the documented record actually shows is what this video is about. Here's what they didn't tell you about the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. April 4th, 1968, Memphis, Tennessee. King was standing on the second-floor balcony of the Lorraine Motel when a single shot struck him. He was pronounced dead at St. Joseph's Hospital just over an hour later. He was 39 years old. The investigation moved quickly. A fingerprint on a rifle found near the scene led investigators to James Earl Ray, a 40-year-old escaped convict from Missouri. Ray was arrested 2 months later at Heathrow Airport in London, carrying a false Canadian passport. He was extradited to the United States and returned to Memphis. On March 10, 1969, Ray entered a guilty plea in Shelby County Criminal Court. He was sentenced to 99 years in prison. 3 days later, he recanted. Pause for a second. Ray did not wait months to withdraw his confession. He waited 3 days. Almost immediately after entering the plea that ended the legal proceedings, he told his attorney he had made a mistake. He spent the rest of his life until his death in 1998 insisting he had not acted alone and had been set up by a man he knew only as Raoul. The legal system did not reopen the case. Ray's recantation was noted and largely set aside. The guilty plea stood. The case was closed. But here's the problem with that. A confession that is withdrawn 3 days after it is entered is not the same as a confession that holds. Does a confession settle a case if it is later withdrawn? That question matters more here than it might in most cases, because Ray's guilty plea was not the product of a trial. There was no trial. The plea was a negotiated arrangement that avoided the death penalty and resolved the case without producing a public evidentiary record. No witnesses were cross-examined. No physical evidence was tested in open court. The full case against Ray was never presented and examined the way a trial would have required. The agreement resolved the legal question. It left the factual record incomplete. And this is where it gets interesting. In the late 1970s, Congress took a second look. The House Select Committee on Assassinations was established to reinvestigate both the Kennedy assassination and the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. The committee worked for years. It examined physical evidence, witness accounts, and intelligence records. It produced a final report in 1979. The committee concluded that Ray had fired the shot that killed King. On that point, it agreed with the original finding, but it also concluded that Ray had likely not acted entirely alone, that there was probable cause to believe that a conspiracy had existed, that unknown individuals may have provided support, financing, or planning that contributed to the assassination. Now look at this. An official United States congressional investigation concluded that the man convicted of the assassination probably did not act entirely alone, that a conspiracy was likely involved, that other individuals, unidentified, may have played a role. That finding was published, it is in the congressional record, and it did not result in a new investigation. Can an investigation be definitive and uncertain at the same time? The answer the House Select Committee provided is essentially yes. Ray pulled the trigger, and something larger may have been involved. Both conclusions coexisted in the same report. The committee did not have enough evidence to identify who the other participants were, so it named Ray as responsible, noted the probable conspiracy, and concluded its work. The practical effect was that the case remained closed. Ray remained in prison. The question of broader involvement remained officially unresolved. And this is where it gets complicated. The King family did not accept the official account. For decades, King's family, including his widow Coretta Scott King and his son Dexter King, publicly maintained that Ray had not acted alone and that the United States government bore some responsibility for what happened in Memphis. They pursued this position through civil litigation, which produced the 1999 verdict. That civil trial is the part of this story that almost never appears in the standard account. The case was King family members versus Lloyd Jowers and other unknown co-conspirators. Jowers was a Memphis restaurant owner who had claimed in a 1993 television interview that he had been involved in the assassination and that the actual shooter was not Ray. The civil jury heard testimony over several weeks. On December 8, 1999, it found in favor of the King family. The verdict concluded that a conspiracy involving Jowers and government agencies had contributed to King's death. And this is where people start to question it. The Department of Justice reviewed the trial and the verdict and concluded that the evidence was insufficient to support the conspiracy finding. Critics of the verdict noted that civil trials operate under a lower standard of proof than criminal trials, and that Jowers himself was an unreliable witness whose account had changed over time. The verdict and the DOJ's assessment did not establish what it appeared to establish. But here's the tension that does not go away. The King family brought the case, they heard the testimony, they accepted the verdict, and the jury, having heard everything presented to them, reached a conclusion that the official account did not. What determines trust in a case like this? The official conclusion, or the contradictions that accumulated around it over 30 years? There's no clean answer, and that is the honest position, because here's what the documented record actually contains. James Earl Ray confessed, then withdrew his confession 3 days later and maintained his innocence until his death. A congressional investigation found he likely did not act alone, but could not identify who else was involved. The King family pursued a civil case for 30 years and a jury found in their favor. The Department of Justice reviewed that verdict and rejected its conclusions. Every one of those things is true simultaneously. They do not resolve into a single account. They coexist in the record as a set of facts that point in different directions without arriving at the same place. And that is what makes this case different from most historical questions about the assassination of a public figure. We have seen this structure before on this channel in JFK, where two official government investigations reached opposite conclusions that both remain on the record. In Watergate, where the official account and the full picture diverged for years before external pressure produced more of the truth. In the Pentagon Papers, where private assessments ran parallel to public ones until they couldn't. The pattern is not that official conclusions are always wrong. The pattern is that certainty, when it is constructed quickly, under pressure, without a full public evidentiary record, sometimes leaves questions that the original conclusion was not designed to answer. Ray pleaded guilty without a trial. The full evidence was never tested in open court. The House Select Committee found probable conspiracy, but could not name who was involved. A civil jury found conspiracy, but produced a verdict the DOJ rejected. That is the documented record of what we know. And here's the reframe. This story is not about solving the assassination. It is about how certainty is formed and how it changes over time. A guilty plea became a recantation. A congressional investigation found probable conspiracy and named no one. A civil jury reached a verdict the government rejected. The case has been legally closed for more than 50 years. The record has never fully agreed with itself. And that's the part people don't like to sit with, because closing a case and resolving a case are not the same thing. The legal system closed this one in 1969. The factual record has been producing contradictions ever since. If a case is legally closed, but the record still points in different directions, what does resolved actually mean? Tell me in the comments what you think, because where you land on that question says something about how much weight you give to official conclusions when the contradictions are this documented and this persistent.